Wilson's, the choice of champions. For more than 15 years, Bill Wilson has been at the forefront of competitive pistol shooting. First, as a champion masterclass competitor and an internationally recognized pistol smith. Today, Wilson is known as the world's leading manufacturer of pistol parts and accessories for both competition and self-defense handguns. From the classic competition match trigger to the all-new Ultima Lube high-tech gun lubricants, Wilson's Gun Shop continues to be the leading innovator of quality parts and accessories for competition and self-defense handguns. Wilson's Gun Shop is dedicated to being the nation's #1 custom handgun and accessory company by not only offering the highest quality and service, but by providing you with the most complete selection of precision parts and accessories for all types of handgunning. Wilson's gunsmithing and competition-proven auto pistol accessories have been used by champions for more than 15 years and continue to be so, as they were an integral part of the pistol used by Jerry Barnhart in his winning bid for the 1992 USPSA National Championship.
The gun is probably the easiest gun I've ever had to shoot. It feels like it's shooting itself, and I'm just standing there holding it. I really like the gun. As usual, Wilson did a good job as far as putting it together. It's super accurate, it's reliable. It does exactly what it's supposed to do.
The Wilson Combat Shock Buff has been a standard of champion competition shooters for more than 10 years. Its performance has been competition proven, as over 600,000 units have been sold. The original Wilson Combat Shock Buff is still the best, and the new Shock Buff recoil systems are designed to improve functioning, accuracy, safety, and of course, to extend the life of your gun by absorbing some of the pounding from heavier loads. The Wilson Combat Guide Rods and the patented Group Gripper Kits improve accuracy of stock barrels by forcing the rear of the barrel up into the locking lugs of the slide under heavy spring tension. 8 different models are available to help you get the most accuracy and reliability with your handgun. Wilson's manufactures a complete line of high-quality auto pistol sights. From the original #3 Wilson Combat High Visibility Combat Sights to the new #367T Night Eyes Tritium Insert Night Sights, incorporating the famous 3-dot sight picture, which is ideal for shooting in low light conditions. And when it comes to competition auto pistol accessories, there's no match to Wilson's quality and selection. Wilson's rounds out its line of parts and accessories with the highest quality barrels and compensator kits available, and a complete selection of Series 47 advanced pistol magazines. These items adhere to the most stringent tolerances in the industry. As American Handgunner magazine says, Wilson's parts and accessories are matched only by the quality and beauty of the pistols produced by the master craftsmen at Wilson's Gun Shop. Exacting attention to detail is what sets a Wilson combat pistol apart, from the precisely hand-cut metal checkering to the exquisitely hand-polished finish. Every facet of a gun destined to wear the proud hallmark of Wilson Combat is brought to the highest level of perfection. It's not just the flawless cosmetics either. Inside the heart of a Wilson combat pistol, you'll find the same dedication to detail. The slide-to-frame fit is meticulously matched for maximum accuracy and reliability. The trigger action is perfected with the most advanced Wilson combat components and then honed with skilled hands for a light, crisp let-off. And the match-grade Wilson barrel is precisely hand-fitted for X-ring accuracy. Wilson's custom handguns are the standard by which all others are measured. The highest quality parts, the most innovative designs, and the best service in the industry. Quality. It's not just a concept, it's a way of life at Wilson's, the choice of champions.
What we're going to do here, we're going to serrate the rear of the slide. What we'll use for that is a 40-line checkering file available from Brownells that we use for this purpose. A lot of people feel that the serrations on the rear of the slide break up light when you're looking at your sight picture. You know, everybody's got a different idea on what serrations are good for. Mostly they look good.
So, you guys like the 40 lines versus
right.
30?
40 lines versus 30. The 30 on the rear of the slide is, really coarse. For checkering, 30 seems to be real fine, but you get it on the rear of the slide next to the Bomar, which has slightly finer lines than 40 lines per inch. It'll be really coarse on the 30. So we've always used the 40, and just seems to work out the best.
How do you get started?
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to the vise and set it up with the butt end of the slide sticking straight up, just like this. And then we'll do the cross serrations, and after we get the serrations done, then we'll cross it and show you how to do a checkered rear slide too.
I notice that you have basically the slide's fully assembled. You've got the ejector in there already.
Right. We'll leave the extractor in there, put the firing pin stop in to where the extractor won't rotate around and mess up your serrations. What we've got here is we've got our 40-line checkering file. We've come over and put the vise in the rubber pad with the butt end up, and prefer to use a rubber pad on this because it seems to help cut down on the vibration when you're cutting the serrations. And probably the main thing to do is just be sure and keep the checkering file in the grooves that you start running opposite, or running the same parallel as the bottom of the slide. So we're going to try to put some of these on for you. Really just kind of do one side at a time, but they should match up close enough that you can just run right on over. And the secret is to keep the file in the same grooves every time. Usually whenever you're cutting these, you just take and cut full depth in the checkering file. And that pretty much does that, and in order to have a checkered front or checkered rear of the slide, all you'd have to do is take and go over the opposite direction. If the rear of the slide was all that you wanted serrated at this point, you would stop.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you want to continue and have a checkered rear, well, then all you do is just, what we'll have to do is we'll have to turn the vise just a little bit. What we've done here, we made that look pretty easy, but it's really not that easy. The main thing is to stay in the grooves that you start the whole way through, and be very careful not to screw them up, because it is very easy to get them crossed up, to get your file out of the grooves that you already have started, and especially when you're transferring from one side to the other side. So it takes a lot of practice. I've been doing it a long time, and it just takes a lot of practice. So what we're going to do now, we're going to try to cross this up and give you some checkering. To do this, basically what we do to make sure that everything turns out nice and even, we're going to start right over where the firing pin would be. What this does, it basically starts both sides at the same time. We'll cut them just about as deep as we're going to go before we start working on the individual sides. Here again, you're basically doing the same thing that you did when you crossed it, except you're going the opposite direction. And it is very important to stay in the lines that you've already established, or you will have to start all over again after you file the butt end of your slide off. At this point, you might want to step back and go back over the horizontal lines. There again, making sure that you get back in the grooves. If you happen to get out of your grooves, you'll cut the tops off of your diamonds and have it messed up real bad. Okay, what we've done, we've finished up our checkering, and after you get finished, you'll notice on all the sides that it's real rough. What we're going to do is we're going to take a real fine pillar file and just knock those rough edges off. You don't want it snagging on your clothing or whatever happens to get up against it. So we're going to bevel this off just a little bit. Basically going all around where the checkering was applied. And that pretty much sums up the checkering. You've got all the sharp edges smoothed off and little sandblast and refinish, and be just perfect.
Okay, what we've got here is our commander we've been working on. We're going to checker the front strap.
What kind of tools you
The
got?
tools we're going to need, first of all, you'll need a set of calipers to measure it and make sure it's thick enough to checker.
What's the minimum that you could work with?
You really wouldn't want to be trying to checker anything that's less than 60 thousandths. And this one measures about 65 or so, so it's pretty safe, as long as you're checkering at 30 lines per inch.
If you were going deeper?
If you were going with 20 lines per inch, you'd want at least 70 thousandths.
Okay.
This is a jig that we have fixed up to secure the frame so you can hold it and get to it easier.
If you didn't have that tool, how would you hold the frame in place? Would be a good method?
You just about got to have it.
Because you don't want to squeeze it because you'll bend it, huh?
You're going to need a mill bastard file with one safe edge on it.
Now, what's your first line? What are you trying to do?
Okay, what I'm doing now is checking to see where the radius part of the frame starts off at the flat part. Okay,
And why are you doing that?
that's where I'm going to make my border for the top row. I'll scratch a little line there, and then I'm going to have to come around here on this side now.
Now, you're just doing this with the edge of the file?
Yes, with the safe edge toward the upper side of the gun.
That's a straight line, right?
Yes, it should be. If it's not straight, if you don't get it straight to start with, you're going to run into problems on down the line. Okay, now that we've got our border cut up there, we're going to cut us a small groove right across just under it with this triangle file.
And you're using the edge of the file?
Yes. This will actually be your top row of checkering.
These two lines. And how deep you cut these lines?
Just about the same depth that the checkering will be when it's finished.
Yeah. And how deep is that?
Oh, probably about 35 thousandths or 40.
Now,
Now I'm tipping him up where I can get over on the back side a little bit better.
so you basically now at this point have two lines in the gun, right?
No, actually just one line.
Oh, just one.
You want to always check it and make sure it looks pretty square after you get that done. And set up to start our long lines.
Now these are, what is it, the plate there?
Yes.
Metal
Just-
plate?
Yeah. Just gives me a good square edge to run off of, so keep my lines good and straight.
Okay. And what kind of...
And I've got a 30-line checkering file with the ends sharpened so that you can angle it up and push off of the ends and cut off the very tips. Just get it up good and square against your plate. That gives you good straight lines right down the center. Yeah. I like to get these first few lines just almost to full depth before I remove the plate off the side of the gun.
Why is that?
That makes it a lot easier to stay in them whenever don't have your plate for a guide anymore. When you're using the lines themselves as a guide.
So you use the line for the next line. So this first series of lines is really the most important.
Yeah, you got to be sure and get them straight, or
Straight and deep.
if you don't, you're going to have trouble from then on. Those are probably plenty deep now. We should be able to take our plate off and be all right.
Now that your plate's off, what's next?
Yeah, we just found us a good sharp file. Go right back to doing basically just what we was, but now you don't have your guide, so you need to be extremely careful to stay in the lines that you've already got laid out.
So you're still really working on the same line?
Yeah, and kind of just trying to ease over and add one at a time or so as you go.
But using the other lines that you've already got down as a guide, right?
Right.
When you start adding next more lines,
Okay, I'm adding more lines at this time right now.
as you go. And so you add a line when you feel comfortable, or when you feel that you've got a deep enough score on the other line, you go ahead?
Yeah, as your lines get deeper over toward the center where you've been working, you can kind of just ease in another one.
And are you eventually going to work all the way towards the edge of both edges?
Yes, you'll eventually go plumb down to where the polished sides of the frame are. It's hard to get down toward the very bottom of the gun with your file tipped up cutting off of it like I was. So I like to get one that's good and straight and fairly short and kind of lay it down in the grooves. Let it run the lines plumb off the bottom end of the gun.
Okay, so you got that edge is kind of nice there, huh?
Yes, the lines come all the way down to the end of the frame now.
You're comfortable that you've got a good clean cut there all the way through.
Yes, they look pretty straight looking up them.
And you continue the same technique just to keep adding lines as you go around?
Yes.
Do you add any more tools or any more plates?
No.
Most of it's just handwork, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're finishing up our serrations on the front strap here right now. Still using the same file that I've been using.
This is the last line, right?
Yeah, this will be the last line on the edge here. It'll run just nearly right up to where the radius part of the frame rolls over to the polished parts and the sides of it.
You don't want to get sloppy or anything, right?
You want to be careful and not let your last line go over onto the sides of the frame itself.
How many hours you got into this checkering at this point?
I've probably got about an hour and a half or 2 hours in it at this point here.
How deep are you running that tool there?
I'd say it's about 3/4 of the depth that they will be when it's fully checkered. It makes it a lot easier to cross the frame later if you don't checker it as to full depth. We've got all of our vertical lines laid out on the front strap now, the wheel. And they're cut at about 3/4 of the full depth that they'll be when the gun is completely checkered. That makes it a lot easier when you're crossing it and keep your file from chattering hardly so bad. We'll turn him around, put him back square in the vise here. Pick us out a good crossing file. It helps if you find one's got a real straight edge on the upper side. Because you're going to be laying it up against this border that we originally cut at the first. You're going to be using it for a guide for your first line. Okay. Okay, it'll be cutting about as many grooves as the width of your file.
And how deep are these going?
Just about the same depth that you've already cut your vertical lines. Okay, and then after you get your first set of lines laid out, you can just ease down and pick up maybe 1 or 2 lines at a time from there on. You'll notice that I have one side of my file marked. That is so I'll be sure and use the same side. You need not to ever switch sides of your file or change files when crossing.
Oh, really? Will that throw your lines off?
Even though you have 2 files that are both 30 lines per inch, they won't be exactly the same.
So always use the same side to make those horizontal lines.
Right.
What's the secret to this checkering? Is it just a lot of practice, or how do you get good at it?
Takes a lot of practice.
Really? Now, how many have you ruined before you got to be real good?
Oh, you can't ruin them.
You can't. Can't do it. Half done, right?
Yeah, it's basically half done. Maybe not. Hardly half. You'll have to switch back and forth after you get it fully crossed, and you might want to run your vertical lines a little deeper, and then switch back and forth maybe 3 or 4 times.
Back and forth between the vertical and horizontal?
Yes.
So once you get it fully done, then you're basically saying that you'll just go back and just get them a little deeper, back and forth.
Yeah, until your diamonds all come out sharp, with a sharp point on the top side.
And a lot of that sharpness is kind of a personal preference too, right?
Right.
Okay, great. So you've got, what, another hour or so worth of work here?
Yeah, probably 45 minutes.
And you'll be done completely?
Yeah. Okay, we've got our stainless steel Commander slide here, and we're going to set it up in the mill and machine a dovetail in the front of it for our dovetail Wilson night sights.
Okay. We got some ordinary paper in the...
Yeah, I put some paper in there to keep from marring the sides of the slide itself. I'm going to level off the top of the slide here. Okay, the cutter we'll be using for doing this is a 300 thousandths by 60 degree dovetail cutter. Okay, what I was doing right there was finding the front of the slide so I can move the cutter back 90 thousandths.
And you've dialed in with one of the back, right?
Yeah. I run it back 90 thousandths. I'll lock it down. Use a piece of paper to slip under my cutter to find the top of the slide. Okay, now I've found the top of the slide so I can go down my depth of 65 thousandths. Lock the table down. Now we'll machine our cut. how to do it? Okay, this is our tapered cone dual port barrel system, and our new front sight for it, and it'll virtually install exactly the same manner as what I just done to the commander slide.
So you just go ahead and lock that into the vise and just cut a
It's
dovetail
just-
right there.
Yes, just cut your dovetail in it, just virtually the same as what I did to the commander slide just now. Okay, we're going to discuss the low mounting of the Bowmar rear sight to the Colt government slide or commander slide. It would be the same for. Your first cut you'll need to make will be the large flat cut. On a pre-series 80 slide, you can make this cut where your Bowmar itself will set flush. The rear of the blade will set flush with the back of the slide,
Put that up there.
such as that. But on the 80 series slides, you will have to move it back an extra 100 thousandths to clear your 80 series plunger. Okay, the measurements on that for the pre-series 80s would be 1 inch from the back of the breech face to the front of that cut. On the series 80s, it would need to be 1 inch 100 thousandths. Then your second cut will be your radius cut at the rear of the slide, which will give you clearance for your elevation screw in the back of your Bowmar. And it will need to be 2 inches 100 thousandths from the back of your breech face to the front of that cut.
Okay, and third cut?
The third cut will be your dovetail cut, which will be cut with a 65 degree by 330 thousandths dovetail cutter. And it will be cut at a depth of 100 thousandths.
Okay, and once they're all cut, you can basically just slip the slide in, or do you have to do some other adjustments to it?
You might have to do some minor fitting with a dovetail file, but it should be fit pretty close. Okay, the depth of their radius cut at the rear of the slide will need to be 150 thousandths.
Okay,
And the distance from your dovetail in the slide from the front of your original first cut will be 300 thousandths.
Okay, now we're going to fit a stainless number 7 extended slide stop. You can get them in blue or stainless, either one. There's really not a whole lot that has to be, fit on. We've got a blue frame here where you can sit a lot better. And this particular frame here, it drops right in. Usually they drop in just like they should. You'll make sure you've got full travel up and down with it, where it completely engages the notch in the slide. And about the only thing you need to look out for is on this particular angle, right in here, this corner. If you're going to be shooting, round ball ammo, you might have trouble with the ammo in the magazine coming up and kicking your slide stop up before it should. You may be halfway through the magazine and one round might get up, over there, and just, any hit at all would be enough to kick it up.
oh, really?
And so, you might have to modify this corner just a slight bit, and you may also want to polish the face of it here to where it'll slide up and down on the plunger nice and smooth. And that's basically the only thing, that you really have to look out for.
So because of the size of the round ball ammo,
Right, they've got a big round corner on them. They've got a more tendency, other than like on semi-wad carrier, they've got
Right.
tapered sides on them. They have a tendency, they usually won't, but every now and then you'll run into a case when it's doing that, and that's the problem.
so if your slide is kicking back and locking back, that may be the problem.
Right, that may be the problem. You want to make sure too you don't cut too much off and get into this flat right in here. This is what engages this is what the follower engages. on the last round. And if you cut any off of it, it'll affect your gun staying open on the last shot.
So
So you want to stay off of that, and any modifications done to it would have to be done on this front corner here.
So in competition shooting, these are kind of common problems that one, sometimes your slide will lock back when you don't want it to.
Right.
Or on the last shot, it won't lock back.
Right.
I see a lot of guys that are shooting in competition where their slide just goes right forward. What's the problem there? That's because you're eating too much of that away?
Well, you really shouldn't ever touch it unless you have to,
Right.
unless you're having a problem. You don't ever want to touch this surface in here, because that's what engages your follower. That surface there won't cause any trouble with, shooting any kind of round bullets or anything
Right.
like that. So you got to have the full distance there, or your follower might not catch on it and kick it up like it should. And
So what you're saying is you should drop it in out of the bag the way it is,
try it.
maybe polish it up a little bit.
Right, polish it up. Polish the to start with, you just want to drop it in there, make sure it travels up and down, make sure it doesn't have any burrs, on the inside of it here or anything. Just polish the front of it and drop it in there, try it. If it doesn't cause you any problems, there's no reason to ever touch any of it.
Make sure to try it without the plunger too, the plunger assembly.
And you want to try it without the plunger tube assembly and everything in there to make sure it's got full freedom. Otherwise, you might not be able to feel any glitches in it.
You wanna
Like
just
this
drop it
one.
in like this,
Right,
huh?
just like this. You want to just be able to drop it in there and try it, make sure it's going to have full, once it needs to be completely smooth, going up and down.
Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to show you how to install the Wilson extended magazine release. And all you need to do is take out your stock magazine release and put it aside or hang on to it for later. And we're going to take our stainless extended mag release, which is the mag release, and it has a button on it. We're going to take the button off to put it in. Get it out of the way for now. And we'll need the spring and the mag lock out of your stock part. Put it into the new Wilson part. And just basically replace what we took out.
They always fit that easy?
Usually you might have to take a little bit off. You always want to put a few drops of oil in here before you put it in, but one thing you might have to do, if you get it in the frame and that lock doesn't quite want to turn into the groove in the frame, what you might need to do is take your lock back out and ever so slightly, you can see the side here, just take a few swipes of the file across that little arced radius right there on that lock tab. Put it back in the body, put it in there and check it and see. Usually 9 times out of 10, few 2 or 3 swipes, put it back in the spring and back in the body and it'll turn in there. Most of the time it'll just go right in.
That's about the only other problem is the mag catch might be a little bit tight and just look for wear marks and polish off the high spots.
Right. On the mag body itself, if it's really grating in the frame, it's really not real smooth, well, you can take it back out and look on the side of it, somewhere usually back here. There might be some wear marks, shiny spots where it's rubbed in the frame. You can slightly take them off with a small round file or a small pillar file like this. This
You
one
just
seems to
test
be
it and see
pretty
if it
good.
works.
Yeah, make sure it's okay. And then when you've got it in, you get your button and your screw started on there. Some people, once they get to this point, they put that button on, they might want to put some mild Loctite in there to keep that tight, which it's not going to loosen up, but you might just want to make sure, put a little bit in there, it's going to hold it. That way it gives you an extended surface here, a little wider. You can see here that there's a little rim extending around here, wider than the button and the body itself. It gives you a little more surface area. You don't have to shift your grip quite as much to where you have to throw it in your hand like a stock gun, to where you can keep it the same grip and just release your mag put another one in, you're ready to go. It works out pretty good. Pretty simple switch out part there. And the only other thing I might do is, if there's a sharp edge around here, I might take a file, run it around there, and just break those sharp points. This one's chamfered pretty good just in manufacturing, so you shouldn't have any trouble with that, but it's a good non-slip grip, checkered there. Should work real good. That's about all there is to putting in the extended mag release.
What we have here is a Wilson thumb guard. It's one of the more simple parts. Basically, all you have to do is remove the slide from the frame, pop your thumb safety in the on position. Some thumb safeties may have to have a little material removed from the inside to give it adequate clearance when the mag well, or when the thumb guard is up against the frame. Well, you may have to remove just a little bit of material to get you a clearance on the ambi. And basically all that amounts to is just drop it on the frame under the safety, put your grip back on. Put that down nice and snug. Not too snug, or when you decide to take your grips off, your bushing will come out with it. And that's pretty much all there is to one of the thumb guards. What we've got here is Wilson part number 320 in silver. This is the scope mount we're currently installing on the customer's gun. It uses 5 screws on each side. Of course, the screws come with a kit. Got complete instructions inside. You'll notice on the front, some of the very first literature says that really recommend that it be installed by an accredited gunsmith, which is really recommendable on most all of the parts. What we can do here is we can lay these on here and basically show you how to put that on. What you would want to do is put that even with the front of the slide, or front of the frame on this area, and fairly well even with the underside of the slide rails, or parallel with the top of the slide.
Now, would you be concerned about slide clearance there at all?
This particular mount has plenty of slide clearance all the way around, so you need to check it at the same time that you have the gun to where that you can slide the slide on, and make sure you have the proper clearances before you actually drill and tap the holes. To drill and tap the holes, you use a number 28 to center through the hole. That would be the same size hole as what is in the mount, and then after you center with that to start your hole, well, then you drill it with a number 33, and then tap it with a 640 tap.
All right, so then you would then use the screws that come included in the package.
Right.
Lock those down, or what?
And after you get the screws in and make sure you've got proper clearance on your slide, just in case, then you would take and shorten your screws till they're even with the inside of the dust cover. At that point, you can remove them and Loctite them after they're degreased properly.
And to shorten the screws, you just file them down, or?
The best way is to see how much you need to cut off, shorten the screw, and then, if necessary, take a round Dremel stone that you can follow the contour of the inside of the apron.
Okay. So let's see it as it is installed here on this frame.
Okay, here we have a Colt frame that already has one installed. As you can see, it's flush with the front and basically lines up with the slide stop hole on the frame. And if we can get a shot of how the screws are flush with the inside of the frame apron on both sides.
Yeah.
And as you can see, all the screws are flush inside.
That's real important, right?
Very important because your slide operates in that area.
Right. Let's see the McCormick piece.
Okay, the most current Wilson scope mount that we have is this one here that we've put on this frame for Jerry, and it also mounts on both sides, but it takes a little extra slide modification in order to get the clearance because we've put it so low on the frame in order to set the scope as low as possible over the center of the bore.
What basically you're doing to modify the slide?
Basically just put it in the milling machine and milled about 50 thousandths, roughly 50 thousandths off of the top. Basically this mount is installed the same way as the other one we just had, the part number 320, except it has one less screw because of it's got thicker areas to bore into. So we cut down on the number of screws, and you install that the same way with proper degreasing and Loctite. One other thing I might mention is on this particular one here, you do have to modify your slide stop just a little bit to where that it will clear the left side of the scope mount.
So you just take the slide stop down, Ted?
Right.
We're just about going to wrap our gun up. The last thing we do here on this stainless Commander is we're going to etch a Wilson Combat logo on it. Now, if this were a blue gun or going to be metalloid, we would do that before it got blued or before it got plated. But since it's a stainless, all we have to do is etch it, clean it off, polish it up a little bit. Virtually it'll be ready for assembly and lubrication.
What's the process going to be?
The process we've got here is basically we've got these stencils we have made up. This particular one happens to be one we etched our barrel hoods with, and what this is a material that's cut out with whatever shape or name or letters or whatever we want, and when we place it on the metal and etch it with this little machine here, it actually etches or burns out the metal where the letters are cut out. This tool over here is an etching machine. It's electrically operated, and what it does is when we tape the stencil down onto the metal barrel or the frame or whatever we're marking, you put some solution on this little applicator right here, and it actually etches or burns out the metal where you've got the cutout words or the cutout shape or whatever you're etching. So I've already got one taped up on here that says Wilson Combat on the side of the frame. I've got it straight. I'm going to put some solution on this, and we're going to etch this out, and I'll pull it off and show you what it looks like.
And you've also got a lead hooked up to the
Right, it's a positive ground on this, so it actually works opposite of regular electricity. So let's give her a try here, see what happens. This is just a marking solution I'm putting on here. Dab a little bit off of it. Turn my machine on. And basically it's just basically what I'm going to do is just touch it on there and hold it for a little bit and keep pulling it off. Now in stainless you don't need to go very deep because you're not going to do a whole bunch of polishing over the top of it, so it'll stay real good. But we want it deep so it'll last a long time. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if we can get it now. It's not going to work. Just about got it. Okay. We'll pull this tape off. Get rid of it. And I got some cleaning solution on here that will clean that etching solution off so it won't discolor the finish or anything, get rid of any grease or oil or dirt. And we'll dry that off. Got a little piece of that Scotch-Brite we talked about earlier just to brighten this up with any discoloration that may have occurred. And there we've got an etched frame. It's good and straight, clean, you can read it, looks good. So that's it, and the next step will be assembly of this gun, and we'll show you how to assemble it properly and lubricate all the parts from there. That ought to do it. Okay, we're winding down on our video gun here, our little Carry Commander, and assuming now we're to the point where we've got all of our custom work done, our barrels fit, trigger jobs done, we've got our sights on, we've got the extractor work done, trigger job, hammer, beaver tail, safety, pretty much all the custom work done that we're going to do to this particular gun. Your checkering done, and the last thing that you want to do when all your custom work's done is what we call final prep for finish. We're going to take care of all the scratches in the gun. You notice here that, like Vic told earlier, that some scratches in here from stock safety or just even moving the safety around a lot that we were fitting. Handling of the gun, any scratches or dings that we've made checkered. We're going to clean the gun up, take out all the scratches, make it look good as possible. Break a few edges, especially this is being a carry gun, we're going to take some sharp edges off that going to give you some trouble in handling the gun in and out of a holster, or you might have an inside the pant holster or whatever. Get rid of some snaggy points. So one of the first things I do, one thing that's sometimes overlooked, the gun's pretty much together. You've got all these sharp edges on the front muzzle, underneath the gun, even on the top. I like to take care of some of these. Right here underneath the frame, this area right around here, I usually take a file and just bevel that edge real slightly. Being this carry gun, I'll probably end up doing it a little more than normal, just to make sure it's good and snag free. And all I'm doing, and this is pretty much personal preference for you all doing this at home. You can do however little or as much as you want. Not really a lot to this. Just breaking this edge along here. Again, I say you can do as much or as little as you want. The only other thing I would do to this would be to take a polishing stick and smooth that out a little bit. This around here, I would just follow that contour and that line around there, just smoothing that up to where that's going to not be a sharp point, but it's going to give on fabric or pants or holster or whatever. Again, we go back to the slide. Usually a pretty sharp edge around here from Colt. Some of the older guns are beveled from the factory around here, usually pretty erratically, not the same on either side for looks and things. But most of the newer guns are not beveled. This being the length that this barrel is going to be, meaning that it's not going to have a comp out here, which you wouldn't want to do this on the slide if you're going to put a comp, because you'd want that to be a good sharp corner to meet up with the back of the comp. So again, I would take a wide pillar file, preferably a fine cut, and bevel that edge right there. And keeping out here on the bevel with the line from the flat to the round curvature at the top of the slide. And again, bevel that as much or as little as you like. This being a carry gun, I'll probably do quite a bit. Do that on both sides. And this is down here at the bottom of the slide. I think this is real important, because this is the first thing. Muzzle into the slide is going to be the first thing that's going to engage into a holster and come out of a holster. So I always chamfer this around here really pretty good. And just got a small round file. It can be smaller than this or bigger, whatever it's easiest to work with. First, I'm going to get rid of these sharp corners right here. knock both of those off. That way when I chamfer around the bottom dust cover of this slide, it'll all blend in. Okay. And back here in the back of the slide's usually pretty sharp too. I'd knock this off. And again, every time I bevel one of these edges with the file, I'll come back with the polishing stick and just buff that off with the polishing stick. Now on the sides of the slide where it's nice and shiny, on both sides, the slide looks pretty clean, but there are some scratches and some nicks. And on the sides of the frame, especially on a stainless gun, we like to use this stuff. You can get it through Gun Supply, Brownells, and or this parts store, auto parts store. It's called Scotch Brite, and it's just a real fine abrasive type of material that works real well to polish metal or wood or anything. All we do with this is we just real lightly just rub this or buff it on the side of the slide. And on stainless steel, it really shines it up and takes care of little imperfections. Does a real good job. Kind of brings back the, sometimes even better than original, brushed looking finish on that. And you can do as much or as little as you want to. And again, I do this on the side of the frame the same way, being careful not to get down in and rub off and smooth off your existing lines. You can pretty much do that all over as much as you want to. And on these heavier scratches, like we talked about around where the safety is, I would take my polishing stick and really work on those areas. And get as many of those scratches out as I can. Some of them will be pretty deep, you might have to work. And just make sure that you don't concentrate too much exactly in one spot. You want it all to blend in together. And then after I got those scratches out, I would come back with my Scotch Brite and blend that all in and polish the rest of the side of the frame out. Yeah, minimum material removal there, because you don't want any dished out spots that are going to look wavy and take away from the looks of the final finish of the gun. This is pretty good shape right here, but when we checker the gun, you're going to have a lot of push marks where your file overrides your relieved area there. And all I do here is take some sandpaper, and it's up to you whatever grit you can work up, come from coarse down to fine. And I'll usually put this in a vise and get up here somewhere and not, be careful not to crush that with get in there with some rubber vise jaws. And I'll just work back and forth across there with it's kind of a seesaw motion all up and down through there to take care of all those scratches or anything. And then in this area here where you can see you've got the shiny side of the frame and all this area in here that's blasted coat finish from the factory, we're going to want to go back in there and tape off the side of this and re-blast this all down through the checkering and stay light on the checkering, especially. You don't want to dull that up, but we usually use on these stainless guns is like real fine glass beads in our blaster. Works real well. It also helps take out any scratches or little dings from moving it around on your bench. Usually works real well. Again, in the mag wheel area we did some extensive grinding and polishing to funnel the mag well. And we're going to want to go in there, and I think we talked earlier about sanding that with a little mandrel with the Dremel tool. And the final finish on that will be blasted also, like the rest of this here. And if you need to, you can blast the top of your slide. You don't have to on the stainless gun. But if you want to go the extra length to do that, you'll probably need to remove your sights. We talked about these sights being blued. You can't re-blue them with the night sight inserts in them.
Now, if it was a blue gun, would you do basically the same polishing?
Basically the same thing on a blue gun. I would completely polish the blue off the sides, get out all the scratches. Polish, get this in a vise and polish back and forth with the polishing stick down to a fine stick. Tape that off, cut in and all around the little relieved areas and blast the top with sugar sand or glass beads and re-blast that. That way when you run it through the blue tank, you've got shiny blue sides after you take the tape off, You get your matte dull finish on the top. Works out real well, and also on the back of the slide. And also the little various parts, you can pretty much do what you want to on the carry gun. Again, we're going to go around here on the edges of the hammer and get rid of all the sharp little edges here, back here. You want to stay off this area down in here, and if you do blast the hammer up in here for reblue, you do not want to blast your hammer hooks. You definitely want to tape this area off because, again, you've got your trigger job done smooth where you want it. You don't want any abrasive sand going in there blasting up that surface. So you want to stay off your hammer hooks if you blast the hammer for blue or refinish or whatever. And beaver tail, again, you can come back, chamfer these edges. We're looking for non-snag, finish on the gun.
Plus it looks better too.
And it looks better, it looks better. The lines flow better. You take care of all the sharp edges. Right here at the width of the frame where the beaver tail fits, I'll usually knock that off, polish that a little bit. And again, you can go to whatever length you want to, but being it's a carry gun, you want it snag free in and out of a holster. And to this point, we're ready to complete the final prep, and then I think we'll move on to the assembly part, and lubrication of the weapon. We'll be ready to test fire after that.
Okay, pretty much what we have here is Chris has finished prepping the gun, and all the other guys have pretty much completed all of their individual work on the gun. What we're going to try to do now is assemble this and see if we can't get it outside here in a little while and shoot a target with it. Yeah. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay a little tape on the sides of the slide so that we don't mess anything up tapping the sights back on. Step over to the bench for just a second. We'll pick up our front and rear sights here. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to take a wooden drift and drift our already fitted rear sight into its dovetail. It should go in, still should go in pretty snug. But since it's been there before, it shouldn't be too much trouble with it. Usually if you'll kind of set them in the center of the original Colt dovetail, they'll be pretty close to centered up. We'll screw the little set screw down, snug that up real good. Then we'll put our front sight on using the same procedure. Usually most dovetails start from right and go to the left. Set that visually in the center and cover up what's left of the original Colt front sight slot, and those will be plenty close enough for the fixed sights to start shooting them to see if they'll be shooting close to point of aim. Pull our tape off. Move back over here. Right, the first thing we'll do is take our extractor, slide it into the rear of the slide. This should be left sticking out about 1/16 of an inch to put the 80 series part and spring in, or the 80 series plunger. What we'll do is we'll take and drop that in just like so. You push that all the way in, push your extractor on into the slide. Take a punch and line that up in its groove. You can take your firing pin, push your 80 series plunger up, push your firing pin in below flush, let go of your plunger, and this will actually hold the firing pin in place while you put the firing pin stop in.
The plungers hold the pin in place.
Right, the firing pin block plunger is actually holding it in place. It's actually an assembly aid. We just put that in. Should come up even with the underside of the slide. Push our little plunger in and our firing pin pops right into place. At this point, we'll take and put our barrel up into our slide. Install our bushing. Might take and put just a little bit of lube on the bushing, outside diameter, where that'll turn nice and free.
Get the lube locking recesses in the slide.
Okay. At this point, we'll scoot this on forward and put just a little bit of grease up in the bearing surfaces inside the slide around the locking lugs. Just like so. We can kind of put that into place by pushing the barrel into place. Put just a little bit of grease on the front of the barrel. Smear that around. Okay. And we're going to put our spring guide right into place. We haven't really seen this part yet. We're kind of saved it for last. What we're going to do is we're going to put a shark buff on this full-length guide rod. This goes together the way we've manufactured this. It goes together just like assembling any normal government model. Basically, all you have to do to make this work, put your shark buff on, drop your guide rod into the slide in front of the lugs like so.
Make sure the link's to the rear.
Make sure that the link is to the rear. Then what we'll do is we'll take and come up to the front, slide our spring, recoil spring into place with this. Okay, at this point we can go ahead and put a little lube on the slide rails. Really recommend the lube, the grease lube for the heavy wear areas, because it does stay in place a lot better than just a runny oil. Put a little of this on the locking lugs on the barrel. And then we'll use some of the oil on the spring guide. We'll take and do some of the same on the frame. Doesn't really take a whole lot. If you get too much, well, you'll just push it off on the end of the slide. What we're going to do now is we're going to slide the slide up on the frame. At that point, the barrel link should be right in there. We'll swing it on down, put the slide stop in there like so, push the slide forward. At this point, we'll retrieve us a set of safety glasses, push this back like so, and put our spring cap plug on the guide rod. And as you notice, after the plug pops into place, it is recessed to where that you can still turn the bushing. Most people think this should be flush. If it's flush, though, you can't turn your bushing. So it does have to be recessed, but it is not I mean, there's bearing surface inside the plug back far enough you never have to worry about your guide rod getting behind the plug. That's just a little more oil on the guide rod. Then we'll take and put a little grease on top of the barrel. Cycle the slide a few times. See that everything's seated in, setting pretty much where it should be right now. Then we'll start putting some of the internal parts in. What we're going to do is we're going to start by putting just a little bit of the oil in the trigger track.
Trigger's the first thing I put in.
Trigger's the first thing we want to put in. We'll put a little oil in there. Need a little on top and bottom of the pad. What we're using here is the new Ultima Lube oil, which seems to work real good in this area. Make sure everything still moves nice and free. You might even take and put just a little drop of oil there and there to be sure that it got some out there. What we're going to do now, we've got the trigger in, we've got it lubed with the Ultima Lube real well. We're going to lay the gun down for just a second, and we're going to get our mag catch lock, spring, and mag catch. Put just a little bit of oil in this where this little spring works nice and smooth. And then we'll actually lube the lock itself. Very simple to put together. Just line up the groove with the little arm, push it and turn it. 1/4 turn usually does the trick. And what we'll do is we'll just drop that into the slide like that. Push it back out approximately 1/16 of an inch and turn it clockwise until you, very gently, until you hit the groove. As you can see, it just snapped right back shut. Then we'll take and put a little more lube on the frame portion of the mag catch. Work that a time or two. Wipe off the excess, and that's got the mag catch lock in. Okay, the way we're going to do the sear and disconnector to put them in, we're just going to take these and lay them together just like that. We'll take a pair of tweezers. We'll lift them up by the disconnector. Basically just take them over and lay them in the frame. At that point we can pick up the sear pin, get it started through the sear and disconnector, push it until it's through both parts. Okay, we're going to pick up the 80 series part here with the tweezers. Very carefully slide it up until the hole matches the pin and push the pin through. This part should be down against the back of the trigger bow. We're going to pick up the top 80 series part. We're going to go ahead and lay it in the frame. This is the part that sits beside the hammer and above the sear and disconnector and the lower 80 series part. We're just going to push that over against the frame like that.
Okay.
Then we're going to get the hammer here. First thing we're going to do is take a little bit of the thicker Ultima Lube and put it on the hammer hooks. Make sure you get those bearing surfaces coated real nicely with that. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put the hammer in, turn it sideways just a second, long enough to get the pin in. We're going to pick it up, push the pin through both parts. Then at this point we can take our little lubricating syringe and put the Ultima Lube up beside the hammer, on the pin, on the other side of the hammer, doing the sear and disconnector the same way. Be sure and hit all the moving parts and all the contact areas. Move that around just a little bit to make sure that it flows everywhere. Now what we're going to do, we're going to lay this down for just a second. Pick up our mainspring housing and all of its parts. Take a little bit of lube and put on all of this. The lower plunger, we'll drop that in first. And we'll put just a little bit of Ultima lube on the spring on both sides. You can spin that and line it up on the first plunger. We can take this one and put just a little bit on it. Okay, and this one here is almost hazardous, so we'll get the safety glasses again. What we're going to do here, we're going to hold this with one hand, push it down in the mainspring housing, and stick our cross pin in on top of the plunger. Okay, for extra safety, you might consider putting the whole mainspring housing in the vise to install these parts. We do so many, we've developed our own little tricks and can usually put them together without the use of a vise. But if you have one, it sure does help. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick the frame back up again. We're going to take our sear spring and lay it in its proper position, which is on top of the sear with the tail end stuck in the groove that's cut in the frame for the lower end of it. What we'll do here is we'll take a little more lube and put right in there where the end of the hammer strut is going to be riding on that plunger the whole time. We'll stick this up in there and catch that just like that. We don't want to push this all the way up in because we still have the grip safety to install. What we're going to do now is I can put a little bit of the Ultima lube on the grip safety bearing surfaces and the axle hole. Stick that in just like so. We'll take the mainspring housing pin, start it in the hole, up against something solid, push it in like so. Usually for this, we like to take a rounded ended punch, set in the little detent in the pin and just drive it right through until it's flush with the frame. Just like so. Then what we want to do is we want to take and thumb cock the hammer. Take our thumb safety and plunger. I'm going to lube this up real nicely. Stick the little end in first, which is what comes up against the slide stop. Make sure that it's pushed all the way in. Now we're ready to put our thumb safety in. I think we'll take and put a little bit of the Wilson grease on the thumb safety where the detent, or where the plunger tube rides in the detent. Maybe I'll stick a little in here where some of the other contact areas. Lube the axle real well. We should be able to just stick that right in there.
How are we doing here?
What we're doing here is we're going to reach in and push the plunger forward. Well, I prefer a small Allen wrench because that is smaller in diameter than the plunger is around,
Right.
where that you can push that forward push the safety almost up against it and just lift that out real gently to where you don't scratch the frame. Then at that point, you should be able to just push your safety up against the side of the frame. As you can see, that after Vic got done with that, that works very nicely. Now, we're down to the last part of this little deal. What we're going to do now is we're going to put on a set of 351 Kingwood grips with the little Wilson logos in them. But all this should consist of is just drop them grips on like so. Use some of our Wilson Allen head grip screws. Install these with. It's not necessary to tighten your grip screws down real tight, super tight. A lot of people do, but when you do that, well, usually you end up with your bushing coming out with your grip screw the next time you take your grips off, which in most cases it's not really even necessary to remove the grips for basic feel strip and clean. You can just leave them on. Which obviously the more you take them on and off, the looser your grips are going to become, and then you're going to feel compelled to tighten your grip screws tighter. At this point, we should have come into the full working order of the whole deal.
Just give the camera several different views of the guy.
Okay, we've got the grip screws in. That should be the last stage of the assembly process. What we've got here is basically completely finished. Everything's pretty much done. Everybody's took their turns, and what you've got here is, again, ready to go see if we can shoot a group. All the checkering is nice and even. Jim's done a real nice job checkering the front strap and the mainspring housing on this. Did a real nice job on the magazine well. Everything seems to be fit up rather nicely. Notice we have no big gaps in the beaver tail. All the checkering is nice and square. Thumb safety matches everything real nice. Front and rear sights look real well.
is the finished product. Here comes the fun part of getting to shoot it. And what a beauty it is. Pistol Smiths, they've done another fine job. So let's give it a whirl and see how it works. First we need to use Wilson ear protectors and eyeglasses. Okay, let's see how she goes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Another fine gun.
Go ahead.
My name is Rick Webb. I test fire each and every gun that goes out of Wilson's. I make sure that they function properly. I test fire up to at least 50 rounds through each and every one. We use 2 different loads of ammo. We use the 200 grain semi-wide cutter and use the 230 grain round nose. And after I have test fired, make sure that they are functioning properly and everything. Then we fill out I shoot a test target, and then we fill it out and send it to the customer. Each and every pistol smith that's worked on the gun signs it also.
And you sign off too, right?
I sign off too. Mhm.
I'm Vic Tibbetts. I do all the trigger work on all the guns that go through here. I install all the safeties, extended safeties and ambidextrous safeties. You've seen me throughout the video doing what I do. We're real proud of the things we do here at Wilson's, and all I need to do is sign this target and my work's finished.
My name's Chris Peters, and I also work here at Wilson's Gun Shop. And I do some of the preliminary work, taking the guns apart, fitting some beaver tails, ejection port work, and also final prep for plating or bluing. And I think we do real good work here at Wilson's, and we really try to pay attention to detail and make sure the gun functions correctly before it goes out. So let's go ahead and sign this target here. That's it.
Okay, my name is Jim Wilson. I've been working here at Wilson for about 6 years now, or a little over. I do some of the slide tightening, barrel fitting, sight work, some of the Bomar sights, and the checkering. Check the gun over and see if it meets my approval. If it does, I'll sign the test target that Rick shot.
Ready to go, huh?
We'll be ready to go.
Okay, I'm Ron Phillips and have been pictured occasionally in this video. I've been working here for nearly 12 years, and at this point we're doing some of the best gun work that we've ever done, and it's totally related to each individual person who signed this target doing the best job there is around. And the waiting time is basically shorter than anybody else in the business, and we just really feel like we've got the best product on the market. We're going to sign this target and be done with this gun. There we go.